If you're wondering why I have the alcohol, it's because of what I'm about to show you. I've been drinking them back to back non-stop. It's because of this. So Quinn has decided that she's going to start posting publicly. The last time she posted publicly, she got completely lambasted by the entire internet. And now, we're at this point. The hypocrisy of flooding my every tweet with constant harassment and trying to push me to suicide because you blame his death on me. Speaking up about my abuser, that's a lie. After 8 years of suffering in silence, that's a lie. But there's other victims who couldn't speak up is fucking disgusting. That's projection. At the point, you're telling on yourselves. If you really do think that my tweets, which didn't ask for retribution and punishment, which they were capable of killing someone, which they did, you're basically admitting that you're trying to kill me with full-on harassment, which we're not. Do you hear that, everyone? Do you hear that mousy sound? If you listen really close, and you ignore the fan spin, that's Chelsea Van Valkenburg losing her goddamn mind. On this, I said to this tweet, she didn't get this one, but on this tweet, oh, she's really on that shit now. If you admit that my gaslighting killed him, you're making me want to kill myself for your cyber harassment. She probably thought it was clever. She probably thought it wrapped everything up in a nice, neat bow, that she'd be able to get away with it, and nobody would ever at all be able to just, outright come at her. Enter one Diana Davidson, the lady who went full in and exposed her on her articles back-to-back written under the Post-Millennial, detailing the evidence that proved that Zoe Quinn was a fucking liar. This has already been covered in a video before. I'll make sure to have the iCard in the top right corner. Well, let's read Diana's tweet. You were not abused by Alex Walker. People don't want you to commit suicide. They want you to admit that you lied. Your allegation is impossible given the facts of the case. We want you to stop making false accusations and admit that you lied. I go down, and I continue to say, because this is a very long post that she made, and I made sure to have an archive, which we're going to be reading from. Not being reckless with anyone's safety is important to rehabilitation too, but so is understanding that you may not know all the options the survivor of abuse have available, how many they've tried, or how many have failed. Often, there's not going to be a clean solution. Grace and mercy are in short fucking supply. But they're exactly what third parties have over the people in any abusive dynamic. People who have abused and people who have been abused need to focus on healing. Anyway, have fun going back to trying to rip me apart for internet points. And if you really want me dead, stop giving me reasons to live out of spite. And then on another post. Right here. This is right here the reason why Zoe continues to get away with these things. And why it continues to happen. Repetitively. Over and over and over and over and over and over again. This was exposed when people like Nasralli came out and whistle-blew on Zoe Quinn's prior behavior before she ever got involved with video games journalists as far as Five Guys. People like Sorakatten, regardless of the fact that they are being very compassionate right now. This compassion is what allows Chelsea to continue to get away with this scam, this lie that she makes. And that lie is that she's a victim. She did nothing wrong. That she doesn't deserve to be harassed. If you harass her, which is code word for critique her, that means you're just as bad. And then finally, I tweeted directly at her face. where she says, "God, the depravity of creeps on here never ceases to chip away at my faith in humanity." To which I reply, "The fact that you thought you'd be able to guilt trip the internet after we fully know your shit is killing my faith in humanity, Chelsea." And then finally, the archive itself. The top of the post starts, "The depravity of creeps. The hypocrisy of flooding my every tweet with constant harassment, trying to push her to suicide." At that point, you're telling on yourselves. And it's fucking bonkers to use me deactivating my account as temporarily because I was on suicide for the last 2 months as proof of guilt, which I don't believe. I don't believe it until I see proof. So at this moment, I'm just going to say, we're going to trust but verify. Does anybody have anything that proves anything to the corroboration? Because I'd love to see it. Considering I have connections, I could possibly be able to get her some help. All you're proving is why that she had to. Half of these nightmare people can't even spell his name right. Don't tell me you gave a shit about him. Spelling about wrong. If you gave a shit, you wouldn't be flying in the face of the family's wishes. Or his. You mean the family's wishes where they support saying that he's a monster? Rather than actually just allowing him to be remembered for the good he did and not the bad that you chose to lie about? Because we have the truth? That wish? I remember that wish. Because I remember reading his words myself. It's fucked up to be in a position to call for compassion and respect when someone who is fucking low-key, wonderful compassion lady, kidnapped me, but here I am. You weren't kidnapped. You weren't kidnapped. And the timeline proves it. You went to Winnipeg, and you had no plans of leaving anytime soon. You stayed with him in a dormitory where both of you together were working with other people. Shut the fuck up. But here I am, suicide is horrible, stop pissing on his grave, you ghouls. No one's pissing on his grave except you. I'm not going to talk about this again. No, you're going to keep talking about it, because every time you talk about it, you get more media attention. It's been hell for the last few months, and you're barely functional. No, you're barely functional, but you have time to go on the internet. To then continuously wound yourself. Even for somebody who, like yourself, you should know that what you're saying is a lie. Because it doesn't make sense. If you knew that the ghouls on the internet are just going to continue to attack you, why would you unprivate your account? More importantly, why would you come back on the dot 1 week later to say that you were going through rehab for your problems, when the reason you came back was because you knew that after you deactivated your account, there's a specific period of time that you have to allow for it to actually verify the deletion of the account deactivation, and you chose to come back because you did this for attention and for clout. The same reason you tried to lie about him, for clout, because you hoped and you prayed that no one would reveal that you were fucking lying. Where was I? Here we go. I'm not going to talk about this again. It's been the last few months and you're barely functional. I haven't been able to take care of basic biological needs and shit. Don't believe that. You have too much money. Too much of other people's money. I'm only saying this because of the confusion of well-meaning people in my replies reacting to the dog piles. You're being dogpiled because you caused a man to commit suicide. Your gaslighting, your group bullying, your group cyber harassment, and the fact that you put an entire games media and press and industry against him with lies that were unproven and then verifiably proven as false shows this. It was one of his main fears, Zoe. He went to you and asked you and him to go to therapy to talk about your problems. And you said to him, if that's what you think you need. He talked about it in 2006, where he explained that he had a very crippling fear that someone's going to make him commit suicide, because they're going to try and destroy him, namely you. But I'm not going to be made a fucking example of to discourage people from getting out of abusive situations. If you need to hear it, it's not up to a victim of abuse to be the vanguard for the abuser's rehabilitation. Rehabilitation is the key, but it's someone else's job. No, it's that person's job. It's that person's job and yours, because you were the victimizer. He didn't victimize you. Not being reckless for anyone's safety is important for rehabilitation. And blah, blah, blah. I already read this, and I already read this, and I already read this. So, let me tell you what's happening right now. Let me tell you the reason why she's saying this shit. It's very simple understanding. It's very simple reasoning. What's happening is the thing that I talked about a few months back, if you remember. If you don't remember, I'll pull it up on screen, and I'll walk you through the timeline of the moment. Because this was far back. This was very far back. It was back in June 27th, after the loss of our boy. You might have noticed, and if you read that moment, I'll put it on screen for you now. This parallels a situation which happened with Holly Conrad after her entire event between herself and Heather and Jared happened. We all know that Jared is 100% in that, but that's not the important part here. What is important is the philosophy of a man in his mythology, of what I explained, with the details of the shit that went on with Atika. With Atika's problem was that he, as a normal person, was a man caught between his own self-made mythology as a hype man and himself as an individual. Atika, regardless of how you feel the situation went down, was not a victim of cancel culture. He was a victim of his own internalized fears and of the fact that he himself felt that he did not deserve what he was given, and that he had issues that he was not able to respond with very well because he didn't know how to deal with it. He was manic. He was out of control. And ultimately, he was in fear of the things that he could not control. And knowing that he couldn't control them, it only made him more upset. This, in the case of Chelsea and the identity of Zoe Quinn, is specifically different for one reason. Where Desmond Dafoe was stuck between the identity of Atika, the hype man, and Desmond, the guy. We're looking at the difference between Zoe Quinn and Chelsea Van Valkenburg. Now, some of you might be wondering, Carl, why do you keep using the government name? Because that's the name that she registered under, so she could do her 2014 lawsuit against Aaron for writing the Zoe post, so she could put a squelch on him, so he could not be able to reply to or stop her from libeling and defaming and smearing his name in the press. The specifics of it go thusly, right? Because if you watched my video, both versions, even if you were able to get over the stupid ass audio, I'm gonna be remaking that soon. It's gonna get re-released. Gonna over the details all over again, whatnot. If you watch that video, the abridged version or the original version, the timeline goes thusly. Chelsea Van Valkenburg is a stripper. She's also an e-girl. She posts on DeviantNation and other sites and places like this, and she fishes for clout and for money, because that's what models do. It is what it is. Zoe Quinn, supposedly, at this point in time, developing the identity and the mindset of this character, possibly, maybe, killed a man. We don't know for sure. No, not even Nadia Resmali really knows, the photographer that whistleblew on her and her behavior. But what we do know is that during this time period, Zoe Quinn realizes and figures out exactly how powerful it is and how very reliable it is to lie about people on the internet. She lies about Nadia Resmali to other models on the site, supposedly so that she can be able to prevent the pictures that were taken of that specific roommate in the article that she was with on her tell-all post getting out. And she also lied, saying that Nadia Resmali showed her disgusting pictures of Vagul. This begins the development of the ideology of the character known as Zoe Quinn, because Zoe Quinn is not her name. It's her stage name. It's the same kind of save name as she chose when she originally went by Deviant Lock. It's no different than me using Mr. Random or Single Player Carl. It's no different with someone like Devos using the name Short Fat Otaku. See, Chelsea is the person. Zoe Quinn is the brand. if you destroy the brand identity of Zoe Quinn, if you are able to prove Zoe Quinn is a consummate liar, that she lied, that she has never been a victim, and when she was a victim of her own choices, trying to manipulate other people. If you display the timeline of her behavior from 2007 all the way to current year, you see that she has consummately lied. She has consummately committed theft from her own supporters for their money. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the only thing that remains is the fact that Zoe Quinn is here telling you that if you are holding her accountable for her actions and for her choices of what we now know as a fact because of the work of people like the post-millennial to reveal the truth of his tweets, that everything she's been saying was a lie from the start. She wrote the post because she knew what it would do to Alec. She knew that she could be able to get a little bit more money and a little bit more clout the way that she always has done by just exposing someone, because that's her tactic. She is a 100% pasture recipient of the hole-shaped god. She chooses to sacrifice someone every time she wants something for attention. She did not expect it to backfire on her, because she didn't expect for people to be able to give a shit as largely as they did, which is what people tend to do when somebody dies because someone else is greedy. So the question is, why is Zoe Quinn why is she so concerned? Why is she fighting so hard to not get exposed? Why is she doing all of this? Why is she speaking so loudly and so publicly, basically confirming that the guilt is getting to her? It's very simple. Zoe Quinn, the myth, the mythology, the consummate victim, the champion fighting for women's rights in games development, can only exist for as long as it's able to prove that they are a victim of a system that they are actively combating. In order to combat this system, and to make it very clear that they're combating the system, they need to be able to expose sex pests that masquerade as the sex police. But we know that they don't talk about the masquerading of the sex police because they're part of it. Like, let's not forget the good posts given to us by people like Mombot. God rest her account. We haven't forgotten, and I certainly haven't forgotten because I'm the one that curates the post now. Because I have it here, now, forever. It lives here in the archives. We haven't forgotten about great, grand pieces of shit like this. We haven't forgotten about things like this right here. Gamergate, where are they now? Because we have this as proof to show that there is a timeline and that there is behavior that goes on in the games industry between the journalists, between the writers and the journalists, and between the people who are making the content with the journalists and the developers themselves directly, both male and female, that have a vested interest in not outing each other because they know all their deep, dark, dirty secrets. We saw how it was able to take down a site like NeoGAF. We saw how it created Reject Error. We saw how it created the entire breadtuber mindset. And we can now see here the effect it's having on her. Because of people like Mombot, because of people like me, because of people who will sit down and do the research and put it out there for any person, Chelsea is scared. She's scared because every time we expose it, it creates that much more of another knife, another pitchfork, another torch to burn in effigy the identity of her stage name. The stage name is where she gets the money from. The name recognition of Zoe Quinn, a victim of misogynists, more specifically misogynerds. That's where her fear comes from. If you destroy the mythology of Zoe Quinn, she has nothing, because she's not a good developer. She can't make games. She dated Gerongi and other journalists and other people, and especially Alec, to develop her games, to get free tech support for her games, to make money off the back of their blood, sweat, and tears, including the literal body of a man. Possibly has killed not one, but two men, one directly that she admitted to on email, which we can contact Nazarami for it, and every single time she appears, she does so only to create controversy, to get clout and attention from being harassed by the man babies. She's created a cottage industry of it. So, until we, collectively, or someone, takes her ass to court and sues her for everything she has and wins, this will never stop. She's not going away anywhere. She's always going to be a drag of society. But she's never going to go to jail for it, because at the most, she gets voluntary manslaughter. Maybe get a fine. Maybe get involuntary manslaughter. Maybe get a fine. She's not going to serve a day in jail. It's never going to happen. Never. Never, 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 never. Because as long as Zoe Quinn is a icon, is a figure they can point to and say, this is the reason why we don't listen to the gamers. As long as that exists, there are always going to be people protecting them. No matter how many bad tick accounts make dumbass points to try and justify how this makes sense, it's always going to be there. Same thing exists with Anita Sarkeesian. Same thing exists with any other shiller, especially including Jonathan McIntosh. Every single time that this happens, you're going to see all of the journalists come out and trying to support her and defend her. Because if she goes down, they go down. And if she's going down, she'll take everything with her. And maybe then we'll be able to rebuild from scratch. Because without this, without the clout, without the time, without the attention, Zoe Quinn is not Zoe Quinn. She's just a scared and terrified Chelsea, hoping, praying that she gets a little bit more attention from all the negative attention. Because then she can say, oh, I have another book in the works. Look at how I was harassed when I did something to explain how I was a victim. You want to prove to me that you were a victim? Show me the evidence that correlates your accusations, because it doesn't exist. I know because I looked. I know because I covered it. I know because I saw it with my own eyes. And what I saw with my own eyes is to the contrary. Again, I like video in the top corner and also in the low bar. There's one thing that I will say. If you have any gumption, any shame whatsoever at all in your mind, Chelsea, Zoe, get off the internet. Delete your account. Go see a therapist. Talk to anyone that's not in this current circle of people. Go outside. Go to a gaming lounge, if they even still exist. Go to a room with all of those people. Sit down. Talk to them. Experience what actual gamers are. Not these toxic people who you feed off of and who feed off of you like shitty gamers takes. Or Danya. Or anyone else of the matter. Because they're not helping you. They're not helping us. They're not helping anything. All you're doing is lining your pockets. And I'm sorry. I don't give a shit for your crocodile tears. No one should. You're a bad influence on the thing that I wanted to be a part of. And that I got to be a part of. It's not as bad as you say it is. But as long as you have a vested interest to lie, as long as it is financially expedient, as long as it is financially lucrative and politically expedient for you to lie, you're going to keep lying. I just want you to tell the truth. That's all I've ever wanted, ever since I started covering this shit. You disgust me, but that doesn't mean you're any less human. Hopefully, you will gain some of that humanity back, and you'll learn exactly why it's wrong to do what you've done. Maybe it'll dawn on you at some point, but I don't think so. Not until you're behind the iron bars of a jail cell will you really be able to think about it. Something to think about. I'll see you guys next time. Mwah. Goodbye, everybody. I'll see you in the next one.